Hello, and welcome to this recording of information that we covered earlier in the CSU 3-minute talk, professional development and competition introductory session. I'm Christina Quinn. I'm the director of CSU Rights, and I'm just gonna go over what we covered there pretty quickly so that we have video recording so that folks who couldn't attend in person can have access to the information that was covered. And then just note that you will be getting weekly for your cohort training program, similar kinds of recordings that gives you good information for thinking about where you are in either preparing your presentations or revising your presentations. And so let's get started. What we did today was we talked about the nature of the 3-minute thesis or 3-minute talk that we do here at CSU. We talked about the nature of cohorts and some of the professional development skills that you will be building during the time that you're participating, and a little bit about the scheduling and details on the preliminary rounds and the competition itself. The 3-minute thesis, or here at CSU, we do a 3-minute talk, and there is a reason for that. It's because we do not follow all of the University of Queensland's rules, and so and it's in part because we include master's students. So anyone who wins an award at the graduate student showcase. They could be a master's student, they could be a doctoral student, they could be working in an MFA program. We allow them to participate within this competition and then move forward if they are a finalist or the top finalist to the state and regional competitions. The 3MT in Queensland's rules is designed for doctoral candidates or for postdocs. And so because we don't follow their rules exactly, we just call it a 3-minute talk and kind of avoid copyright issues. But basically what you're doing is you're telling a persuasive research story or persuasive story about your own scholarship or your creativity to a non-specialist audience. There are some key rules, and I'll talk about those in a moment, that for you to participate in this, you needed to have won an award at the Graduate Student Showcase, and so that's how you're invited. And again, there are the opportunities if you are the top finalist here in our CSU competition that you could move on to regional, state, or even national, international competitions. As a competition, the 3MT has strict rules, and we follow again, most of those rules. You have one slide. You can't use additional media. There are no additional props. You are limited to 3 minutes maximum to tell a story and engage your audience, explain what it is that you do, why it's important, and why we should care. And then the presentations need to be entirely spoken word, no poems, rap songs, for example, commence from the stage. And then the decision of the adjudicating panel, meaning the panel of judges, that is final. So we don't appeal those, for example. The judging criteria is pretty clear and simple as well. All the judges are working on the same criteria with the same rubrics for all of the participants. You will get used to this as you move through the practice and the preliminary rounds and then into the final competition. You're judged based on comprehension and content, meaning is the presentation clear in its background, in its kind of research strategy design, or the results and the findings, the conclusions, outcomes. If you're working with scholarship, are your theories, are your approaches, are your interpretations accurate or clear? If you're doing something in creative work, similarly, what's the context of the work and how is it work to understand it and why is it important? Engagement and communication, so about your oratory, kind of your presentation itself, the PowerPoint slide, the visual, and then whether you shared or conveyed enthusiasm for your work and maintained the audience's attention. You can take a look at the finalists for the Queensland 3M competitions, but there are also competitions and recordings of presenters across universities around the world. So feel free to just explore online and kind of look at and see different presenters and how it is they approach their own work. You'll see a wide range of types of slides, lots of different storytelling approaches, kind of get a sense of what you like, what sounds like it could be something that would be similar to kind of like how it is that you would want to do a presentation, and just it's like kind of just seeing and like what styles kind of suit your own approach for presenting your work to a non-specialist audience as well. In our lunch session, we looked at the Fran Spinelli piece from this year's Queensland competition. And I think it's going to give me a moment of hassle with my tech. So hold on. All right, communication training and cohort-based professional development. Let's talk about the schedule. It's a pretty simple schedule. It runs for about 9-10 weeks, but in between there is a winter break. So this first week we have information, and then we'll also meet with our cohort so that we can get introduced to one another and kind of consider and learn a little bit more about each other's interests and the projects that folks are going to be presenting on. Winter break, you're not required to work on anything over winter break, but if you want to do some preliminary work on your slides or drafts of your talks, that's a great time to do it. And then when we come back, the second cohort meeting, we're going to be talking about what you've got drafted so far and be giving you some feedback, early on feedback for that. By the third week, that January 26th to January 30th, that third meeting, that's where we really want to start doing some major revisions and start practicing. There is a Wednesday round for preliminary kind of practice. And then week 4 is when the preliminary rounds, where you need to have a finalized slide and a finalized talk ready to go. And so those preliminary rounds are on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can figure out which date works best for you, and then we'll plug you into whatever day. So depending on your schedule, one day may work better than another for those preliminary rounds. And then that last week, that week 5, that is the competition week. And so that's the final challenge. The expectation is that all of us come together, all cohort members come and participate. You may be an audience member, or you may be someone who is presenting within the competition itself. But everyone gets a certificate by the end, but also then there's swag, and it's a fun time. And note that only the first place awardee, however, moves forward to the Western Association of Graduate Schools competition and the Colorado Council of Graduate Schools competitions. The WAGS competition is online, and so that first place finisher will do some additional work and behind the scenes and kind of getting you prepared for presenting to a screen rather than to a group of people, a live audience. And then the competition in Denver will include a live audience as well. The expectations are that you work collaboratively to help each other hone the best talk possible and the best slide possible for each other's 3-minute talks for the competitions. And just remember to be authentic, to engage, to lead with curiosity, to be able to connect across differences of discipline and culture and personality, interests and opinion and more. And this is a great opportunity for you to share your research with people who are interested, but also maybe not on your committees, right? And don't have a stake. So it's a wonderful opportunity to get feedback on your work and to connect with others. And then just a reminder to be considerate of each other's time, that when you set times to meet, make every effort to be there. If you can't, sometimes labs call, that there's experiments or other things that seem really, really pressing at the time, but you only have a handful of weeks that you're going to be meeting with one another, and you're going to be an important a member of that cohort. And so just remember to take care of other things, and if an emergency or something happens, then that's understandable, but please make every effort to be part of your cohort and participate. There are some tips for being able to put together a 3MT, and I will take you through designated lessons each week. So I will put together talks, 10 to 15 minutes, that go out to the cohorts, and they'll be posted on the website so that you can access those recordings and get information and advice about where you should be in putting together your 3-minute talk, or things for you just to consider and talk about in your cohort. But really what you want to be doing is focusing on your work and your presentations, and just to make sure that you understand the rules. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Identifying the details of your research and what to include and exclude, And I think this is where your cohort colleagues are going to be so helpful for you when they say, I don't understand, or I need more information here, or wait, that's way too much, right? So you learn that by engagement and connecting with others, which will help you craft the story that you wish to tell and create an amazing slide by practicing, practicing, practicing with others and on your own for sure, but in getting and incorporating feedback, helpful. And then learning to breathe from your gut and how to pace a 3-minute talk so that it is not too fast and not too slow. And then practice presenting your work with confidence and as you want it to be remembered so that you'll do great. All right, the value of durable skills, and just a reminder that durable skills, if you haven't heard this term, they're something like what we used to call soft skills-ish, but there's been an incredible amount of research over the past 30 years on things like emotional intelligence and communications and thinking about how it is that we engage in relationally. And durable skills are these skills that are built over your lifetime ultimately, but definitely continue to hone over your career. You don't just automatically know them, that you practice them is kind of the way to think about them. 8 of the 10 most requested skills in US job postings, by the way, are durable skills. And they're harder to train, but they're more predictive of long-term success. So this is one of the things that we know is really important in doing peer-based cohort trainings for a competition like this, which is how do you lead things? How do you process? And so here are some of the durable skills groupings. But in terms of leadership, character, and personal and professional conduct, collaborating and doing team projects, or just connecting with one another. Communication makes sense because this is a 3-minute talk, but then in your cohorts, you're going to be exchanging information and managing kind of the way that you provide feedback, for example. Creativity and developing new ideas and novel solutions, critical thinking, metacognition, mindfulness, and kind of and self-awareness, and how it is that you are processing feedback. That's really, really helpful to have practice for and low stakes ways of processing feedback. It's low stakes, not high stakes, right? That you have a growth mindset, and we know that you'll grow and improve your 3-minute talk over the course of the next few weeks, which is just amazing. It's wonderful. And that there's some fortitude that gets built out here for your constitution, perhaps inspiration, and thinking about being able to stick with it and continue forward. This is a durable skills grid or wheel from Pathsmith that I really, really like. It's actually America Succeeds. So if you type in America Succeeds and durable skills, you'll be able to pull up this wheel. And we're using this in the Vice President for Research, their fellows program this year, for thinking about like what are some of the skills that we might want to focus on, just, to build out, and not all skills, right? Just 1 or 2 that are just kind of the prime areas. And you could think about this with your 3-minute thesis training program here. What would you like to start working on or be aware of? And thinking like, I'm thinking about in character, there's tactfulness as part of that durable skill training. So maybe if you feel like me, I sometimes struggle with being tactful, you can practice that in these cohorts. Verbal communication skills, that's definitely going to be practiced in these cohorts. Being imaginative and using some creative thinking to put together your slides and the story that you're telling. Definitely you're working on that in these review sessions and practice sessions with your cohort in building out a 3-minute talk. So we'll spend more time kind of with this awareness over the next few weeks, but just you might want to just take a look and think about like, what do I want to hone and what do I want to do? Not just put together a 3-minute talk, but like what skills do you want to be practicing as you're doing this work? It's a great opportunity. Just some good reminders about good communication, that it's helpful if you focus on your intended primary audience. Note that you will have secondary audiences and tertiary audiences as well that are not your intended audience. In this instance, your intended audience is a non-specialist audience, which is flipped from if you're writing for a journal, you're writing a manuscript for a journal in your field, you're writing in your thesis or your dissertation, or you're writing for a proposal. Your intended audience for any of those specialized expert audiences would be technical, filled with kind of complex knowledge, and you might be able to take for granted that folks would kind of understand some of the bigger concepts within your field. Here, we're flipped. So your intended and your primary audience in a 3-minute talk is your non-specialist audience. And so your secondary audience, people who might attend, who would be from your lab or from your department and might have an interest in kind of seeing you present, they're not your primary audience. They might be there, but they're secondary. They're not primary any longer. And tertiary, those could be people that you haven't even really thought of. There was the participant who last year had a university in Canada reach out and say, I saw that you presented at the 3-minute talk competition on this topic. Would you be interested in coming and talking and teaching a class on that topic at our university? So there might be people that you haven't even thought of, but who would be interested. So just a reminder, focus on your intended audience, and the other audiences will also benefit. Another tidbit of advice as you're thinking about kind of brainstorming how you want to start telling the story or putting things together, that it's really helpful if you focus less on yourself and what it is that you know, and more on the other person. And we will practice this and practice this, that really when you communicate what you want to be thinking is, instead of what am I trying to convey, you really want to ask, like, what do they want to get out of this presentation? What does she want to get out of it? What does he want to get out of this presentation? So that you can connect with them and give what you know to them in a way that works well for them as your intended audience, and then will also work for others because of that. Ultimately, your audience is going to be interested and curious, and they want to understand your research, your creativity, your entrepreneurship. We've had folks from business participate, or your scholarship. They want to understand that through your eyes and through your words. Just a little bit of a nugget to think about pitching or 3MT, 3-minute talks. It's a very little time, right? So you have a short period of time to be able to basically sell your ideas or get people to understand and value your work. And so that's why it's talked about as in terms of selling, which is kind of a capitalist way of putting it. But it's really it's a valuable genre for being able to talk about the value of your work. It requires that you distill your work to the essentials, that you identify the most compelling and valuable information to give other people, that you connect with your audience. And then there's some sort of ask or future connection that you leave them with that that encourages them to continue to connect. So usually that's what kind of a pitch structure that you might be familiar with, and we'll talk more about this in the next weeks or so. 3-minute thesis storytelling structure means that you have something that's a hook and kind of reaches out and grabs us at the very beginning. And then in the middle, you've kind of got the information and kind of the complexity, either the problem that you're trying to answer, or what it is you've been finding, the methods, or how it is that you've been working through things. And then the end of like what it is that you found or why this is important and the significance of it. That's a really kind of common way of framing a research style or scholarly story. And we'll practice that as the weeks go by. So next, look for emails from Kimmy or I about your cohorts, getting you all connected, and then setting up a meeting. Again, before fall or before winter break, you want to be meeting with your cohorts. Folks in person filled out a sheet like this today with availability. If you weren't there in person, please know that we're going to be asking for your availability. So if you could tell us, like, on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays or Fridays, what your availability is in the mornings or afternoons. If you're like, yes, I can meet at this time, that's one of the ways that we will be putting together cohorts. All right, so really enjoy getting to know your cohorts and meeting with one another. Have a great first conversation. reach out if you have any questions. Quinn with a Y in the middle or Kimmy Conroe. And we're through CSU Rates at collegestate.edu. All right, we look forward to working with you over the next few weeks. Thanks so much.